One of the most important things you have to remember is the syntax of the functions. If you don't remember it, understand it, or apply it correctly, for example, if you forget to write the semicolons or close the parentheses or whatever other part of the syntax you forget, there are going to be many errors in your exercises, so pay attention. For example, in the case of the function and, you need to write equal, then and, open parentheses, write the first condition. It can be a comparison between two numbers, etc. Write the semicolon, then the second condition. And if you want to write more conditions, you have to separate them with semicolons. Something important is that don't forget at the end to close the parentheses. You see here the syntax for the other functions, or, not, if. Record very well this syntax in your mind. Finally, remember that you have to write always at the beginning of a function or formula the equal sign, but it's just at the beginning, because you can have an AND function inside the F function, and you just need to write the sign equal just at the very beginning of the formula. Remember that. Here you see the comparison between the functions and or. The difference between these functions is that in the AND, you need all the conditions in true in order to have a true result. If you have one of the conditions in false, you will get a false result. With OR, you just need one of the conditions to be true in order to have a true result. Let's see two exercises in order to understand this. In the first case, you have the following problem. A teacher of one of the subjects you are taking says to the students, "Guys, if you want to take the recovery test, you have to meet two conditions. You have to do 15 exercises as homework, and you have to have a grade in the first test equal or superior to 3. If you don't meet both conditions, you cannot take the recovery test." So, if you see the Excel worksheet, you see 4 students: Juan, Matilda, Euripides, and Ambrosio. Next to them, you see if they did the 15 exercises and if the grades in their first test. You see also the formula. Because you need to meet both conditions, you need AND. The first condition is the cell B2 equal to yes. Pay attention that you write between quotation marks because it is text. And the second condition is C equal or greater than 3. This is the grade of the first test. Pay attention that 3 is a number, and that is the reason you don't need to write it between quotations. So text between quotations, numbers, you don't have to write it between quotations. Again, pay attention to the syntax of the function. Equal, and, open parentheses, write the first condition, semicolon, write the second condition, close parentheses. In the second case, the teacher is not so strict. She says to the students, "Guys, you can take the recovery test if you just meet one of two conditions. Either you do 15 exercises as homework, or you have a grade of 3 in the first test." So in this case, you just need that one condition to be true to have a true result. Therefore, you need to write the OR function as you see in the worksheet. But again, pay attention to the syntax of the function. Equal, or, open parentheses, write the first condition, semicolon, write the second condition, close parentheses. And now the NOT function. The only thing that this function does is changing the value of a logical test. So, if the value is true, the result, once you have applied the NOT function, is going to be false, and vice versa. Let's see some examples. In the example 1, you see that in cell A1 you have the value true, and in cell B1 you have the function not. So once you have applied this function to the cell A1, you have the value false. It means the opposite value. In the second example, the problem is the following. A mother has 3 sons, James as James Bond, Clark as Clark Kent, and Bruno as Bruno Diaz. The mother tells their sons, guys, if you want to go to the party, you have to do the chores, do the dishes, make the bed, and you have to do your homework. Otherwise, you cannot go to the party, but you can go to the park. If you see the worksheet, you see the formula in D2 like and of two conditions. That B2 is equal to yes, it means do the chores, and C2 equal to yes, it means do the homework. Just if you meet the two conditions, you can go to the party. But don't worry, if you cannot go to the party, you can go to the park. Here, in column E, we have the use of our not function. If you go to the party, you cannot go to the park. If you don't go to the party, you can go to the park. Got it? Finally, here we have our last example using the not function. Maybe you are thinking, well, but I don't see clearly the utility of the not function. So let's study the following case. In some cases, you might be more interested in knowing when a certain condition isn't met than when it is. For example, when reviewing a list of clothes, you may want to exclude some color that doesn't suit you. For instance, think about the color white. Imagine that you are a client in a clothes store and you tell the clerk, please bring me all the coats, jackets, and fur coats, but except the ones in color white. So the clerk applies the not function to the items in the store in order to know which of them meet the customer criteria. After doing that, the clerk is going to take the items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 0, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1. That are the items that are not white as you see in the worksheet. And now the if function. When you studied the functions and, are, not, you realize that we can only get values such as true or false, They are called Boolean values. We cannot get something else. This is the reason we have to use a more powerful function, f, in order to do something when we evaluate a logical test. Pay attention that the logical test can be a comparison between two numbers, a formula that evaluates something, or even the functions and or not inside the f function as the logical test. Pay also attention to the syntax of the f function. F, open parenthesis, a condition to evaluate, it's called logical test, semicolon, something if the result of the condition is true, semicolon, something if the result of the condition is false, close parenthesis. But let's study some examples. In the first example, you have 4 students, Maria, Jose, Enrique, and Juanito, in the math class. You will pass the subject only if you have an average of your 3 grades greater or equal to 3.5. So, according to the exercise, you see that the condition, it means the logical test, is the average of the range of the cells from B2 to D2, greater or equal to 3.5. Remember that you write the numbers in Excel with commas, no points. If the logical test is true, you will have the message, you passed. If the logical test is false, you will get the message, you failed. According to the data of the exercise, in the case of Jose, his average is 3.7, so it means he passed. On the contrary, the average for Juanito is 3.2, so it means unfortunately he failed. Again, pay attention that text is between quotation marks, you pass, you fail, while numbers, like formulas, are without quotation marks. Got it? In the second example, with the f function, we have the following. Your parents give you money each month. They give you 300,000 Colombian pesos. They told you, if your expenses, it means, for example, the money you spend in going to the movies, buying some food, etc., throughout the month are equal or less than 250,000, you will receive a bonification of 20,000 the next month. So it means you will receive 320,000 Colombian pesos next month. Therefore, you have the data in this way. In cell B1, you have the money given by your parents. In cell B2, you have the bonification. And in cell B3, you have the limit in the amount of money you have to spend in order to receive the bonification of 20,000. Then you have the corresponding expenses for two brothers, Samantha and Julian. They spend, for example, some money in movies, food, clothes, etc. If you see the formula, cell F7, you have at the beginning the logical test, the first part of the F, as the sum of the expenses has to be less or equal to the limit. It means 250,000. If you meet that condition, it means if the logical test is true, you will receive the same 300,000 plus the bonification. If not, you will just receive the same 300,000. For example, for Julian, the total amount of expenses was 245,000. So he will receive 320,000 for the next month. Pay attention that, for example, in this second example, instead of a message in the value if true, you have an operation of two values. So the value if true, value if false could be anything, a message, an operation, even an AND function. It depends on the problem. Finally, in the last example of the if function, you have the following problem. There are some students in math class, Pepe Perez, Maria Antonieta, Josefa Lopez, etc. The teacher tells the students, guys, if you want to take the recovery test, you have to meet certain conditions. You have to do the first homework, and either you have to do the second homework or the third homework. Therefore, if you see the formula, according to the problem, you see that the logical test of the if is an AND function. In the AND, you have two conditions. The first one is that you do the first homework. It means that B2 be equal to yes. The second condition of the AND is an OR function. Why? Because the problem says that you have to meet the first condition or one of the two other conditions. Do the second homework or the third homework. If all of the logical test is true, you can take the recovery test. If the logical test is false, you cannot take the test. Pay attention to the syntax of the logical test. We have an AND, open parentheses, the first condition of the AND, semicolon, the second condition of the AND, which is an OR, and you have to close the parentheses of the AND at the end. It is highlighted in color green. So again, as I told you at the beginning of the explanation, don't forget the syntax of the functions. Otherwise, you will have many mistakes in your exercises. Got it?